Hey guys, Angad from Ignite here. Today's video we're going to be talking about form in Inside My Mother. But before we get started, please check out our website ignitehsc.com.au for more HSC resources, and be sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Let's get into it. So there are three questions we need to think about when we're thinking about form. First, what type of text type is it? In this case, it's poetry. What are the unique features of that text type? Now we'll address that as we go into the video, but just for your own peace of mind. The key features of this are the free verse structure and the narrative voice of Eckermann's. And the final question is, in what style or genre is it composed and what are its features? Now the style here is quite sparse, quite abstract, and there's a heavy reliance on the meaning of language rather than the technical aspects of poetry. But again, we'll get that into that in no time. So now if we think about how Eckermann's poetry is formed, there are four key aspects that we need to think about here. The first is the Western restrictions or the Western definitions of what poetry looks like and what it sounds like. Now by that I mean traditional canonical poetry places a heavy reliance on structure, rhyme schemes, and a very rigid organization of the poem itself. Eckermann disperses with these completely. She adopts what's known as a free verse structure, which has no reliance on rhyme, it has no necessity to follow rhyme schemes or anything like that. Now the purpose of this is to free herself as an Aboriginal person from the imposed restrictions that colonial literature places on what is deemed to be good poetry. Now, if you're thinking about putting that into your essay, you would think about how Eckermann's poetry is a reaction to the poetry that is supposed to be deemed as good and successful. Now, when she was in high school, she was expelled from the school because of a racism issue. So she didn't attain the education, the traditional education that many poets may have experienced. And this is also a reaction to that. She feels free enough and confident enough to pave her own way and in writing her own poetry. Another aspect of the form is Eckermann's use of Aboriginal English. She herself describes Aboriginal English as a source of humour and wisdom and an effective way to understand how Aboriginal people relate to the language and how they themselves can craft their own language that reflects their own culture and reflects their own values as Aboriginal people. Now this flows on nicely to the next part of the next dot point, language and meaning. Eckermann chooses to ignore structure in favour of letting the words speak for themselves and letting readers respond to the meaning of the words. The imposition of Aboriginal words, the non-linear organisation of the poems allows the reader themselves to engage with what the words mean and what they may mean to Aboriginal people and non-Aboriginal people. By deleting structure, she is allowed to express her Aboriginal identity, and she's allowed to consider what Aboriginal English and what the Aboriginal experience looks like from a non-colonial background. And again, this is a really important thing to consider in your essays, because whenever you write about, particularly this module which focuses on language, identity and culture, it's important to understand how language is represented and why it's represented in this way. And in this case, it's represented in this way because it's a reclamation of the Aboriginal identity, free from the Western restrictions that may have been imposed upon it in the past. Now, the final point on form is the narrative voice. The narrative voice refers to the speaker and the message that the speaker is trying to propose to the audience. Now, the narrative voice is very strongly Eckermann's, as it talks a lot about her own personal experiences as a member of the stolen generation. As was mentioned, she was expelled from her school. And so she feels like she wants to make her writing more accessible, more relevant to the Aboriginal experience, and also to represent that slightly different Aboriginal experience to a non-Aboriginal audience. She herself says she writes like she speaks, which is a really interesting thing to consider, and a really interesting thing to consider when you are writing your work. Why is she choosing similar words? Why are verses structured in a certain way? What are the metaphors? What are the slightly abstract and sparse uses of language? What's their purpose? Because as we know, the poems are not what you would expect from a traditional high school poem. They're not overly verbose, nor overly rigid in their structure. They're very whimsical and abstract, and this is representative of that experience, and it's representative of the way in which one speaks and the way in which we relate to what those words are and what they mean to us. And it's important to think about what they mean to Eckermann in terms of coming from her Aboriginal identity and her Aboriginal background, and how she's trying to put forward those values to a modern audience. They're the key formal features, and again, it's really important to think about how you would include these in your essay. When you're talking about specific metaphors, specific instances to cultural aspects, lines that may seem very sparse and not meaning much, think about what they're trying to do. Think about the background that Eckermann has, her desire to free herself from colonial restrictions, her desire to show what the Aboriginal relationship with English sounds like. And you can include those in your analysis parts of your techniques. You can include them at the start of your topic sentences if you are talking about how language is used to represent identity. Because especially in these texts, language forms a critical part of the way in which her poems are represented, and has a clear impact on what they mean and how they should be perceived. That's form in Inside My Mother, guys. Thanks for watching our videos. Please be sure to check out our website, ignitehsc.com.au, and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Thanks.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you do like the content, subscribe to our channel and we'll have more videos coming your way.
That's right, guys. Thanks for watching. And please make sure you check out our online resource database. We've had a team of state rank achievers and heads of English put these together for you, covering everything from essay structures and examples all the way through to craft of writing and comprehension skills. So check them out at ignitehsc.com.au, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.